all the way through to Matthew 10, verse 1. Jesus was just going through all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues and proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom, and healing every kind of disease and every kind of sickness. Seeing the people, he felt compassion for them, because they were distressed and dispirited like sheep without a shepherd. He then said to his disciples, "The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Therefore, beseech the Lord of the harvest to send out workers into his harvest." Jesus summoned his 12 disciples and gave them authority over unclean spirits, to cast them out and to heal every kind of disease and every kind of sickness. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.
Thanks. You may be seated. Thanks, son. All right, let me share with you what we did on missions real quick. That's, by the way, all the photos you're going to see are photos that we took personally. So that's Thailand. That's northern Thailand. The hillsides, beautiful. If we introduce you to our team real quick, you guys know Joseph, Jenny, Pastor Chuchan, myself. Those are the kiddos that live in the dormitories that Chuchan's parents are missionaries. They host. They have about 80 of those students needing to host more. You'll hear about them a little bit later in my sermon. And then that's our team over there. Sorry about the color. We're not that tan. We're a little orange. We look like Oompa Loompas, but they look better. That's Chuchan's dad in the middle, and then that's his wonderful mother on the side there to the left. Here's a couple things. Here's how much the mission trip costs. We're going back in February. You'll hear about it in our newsletter. If you would like to go, that cost should come down a bit. We did a lot of traveling, which of course added to the cost. And then the flight should be a lot cheaper in February rather than in summertime. One of the reasons why we're going there. So that's how much it costs. And then we were able to gather up some money and then give our missionaries $1,000 of offering. A couple other things. Oh, there we go. Here's a couple of things we did. We got a chance to lead worship at the Maewang Church, which is Seonggyusanim or missionary, are the pastor's church there. There he is in the back. Jenny and Joseph got to lead worship. I got to preach in Korean and then, of course, Chuchan's dad translated to Thai. Beautiful time. The dormitories, we helped them with a whole bunch of things. We did field activities, and we also had to help them with their homework. I had the unfortunate task of trying to help these children do math, and I realized I don't remember anything. And so there we are, struggling with no language, just trying to figure. Anyways, it was a wonderful time. And then we taught English at the school, about 75 students, 4th, 5th, and 6th graders. Joseph and Jenny did the vast majority, 99% of the work. I just sat there, clicked some slides. Chuchan took some videos, and they did a wonderful job teaching there. A couple other things that we did. Wait, what's going on? Oh, can you go back? Sorry, I must have clicked too many. We visited the Karen Hill Tribe. You'll hear about them in a little bit. We got to worship in the Hill Tribes over there a little bit. And then we were hosted by the ARCHE Hill Tribe, which again, you'll hear about in a little bit. Couple things here. This is northern Thailand. This is the reason why I'm sharing with you. Bangkok is in the south. Chiang Mai is where we were. That's in the north. So we had to catch a flight from Bangkok to Chiang Mai. If you zoom in a little bit on the next slide. There we go. Oh, we went too far. That's Chiang Mai. Oh, nope. We're having technical issues. There's Chiang Mai. Chiang Rai is up at the top. And so we went to kind of up into that region area. So if you zoom in a little closer here, I got it. Chiang Mai is there. Maewang is where the church is. It's about a half an hour drive. Samoeng is about another half an hour drive. I teach you there because we went from Chiang Mai to Samoeng to go visit the hill tribes. And then if you zoom in a little bit further, there's Samoeng there. A little bit to the left is Panmesa, which you can't even see on the map when you zoom out that way. We walked an hour and a half to 2 hours from there to the Karen Hill Tribe. It's literally in the middle of nowhere. If you zoom in as far as you can go on the map, you won't see anything but trees. People do not live there technically, but they do. And so that's where we were for that. The next part I want to show you, that's the actual picture. That's water buffalo. They just walk around. More on that later. I know. So there we are again, Chiang Mai. Chiang Rai is a city about a 4-hour drive from Chiang Mai. A little bit further up from there is the Golden Triangle. The Golden Triangle is a tourist site where you could buy boats in a matter of minutes, be in Thailand in 1 minute, Myanmar, Burma in another minute, and then Laos in another minute. We actually did that. The reason why that's important is because a lot of refugees, particularly from Myanmar, just make the trip across the border to Thailand, and they live there. Now, that's important because the ARCHE Hill Tribe, right? Boop. If you guys click around on the back there, anyways. This is the ARCHE Hill Tribe. That's where they live. That's the Golden Triangle. And these people, what's important about them, and you see them hosting dinner, and that's their church, they are people who aren't identified by anybody in the world. So the thing about Thailand is you can't get Thailand citizenship unless you are Thai, period. And so these people aren't Thai. We don't know where they came from in terms of their lineage. They're probably from Myanmar somewhere, but they're unidentified. So they don't have a citizenship to anywhere. And the only place in the world they can live is in the hill tribes. And so we got to visit there, but even in that place, they gather together and they worship, and they're Christians. Amazing. So that's where we were, and they most likely come down from the Golden Triangle area, and so that's where we were, and we did a couple of things, and those are all the cute kids in the dormitories. I want to show you this because I want to tell you what we did, so you get a context of how we did what we did when you hear from Joseph here in a second, and then also the sermon. Hopefully this will give you a better idea of what God had us doing in Thailand while we were there. So without further ado, I'm going to invite Joseph up. He's going to grab that mic, and then if you welcome him.
So many people. Okay. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Joseph, and I'm a young adult member here at ARCHE. And I'm so honored and thankful to be able to stand up here and share with you all about my experience in Thailand. I'd first like to give you some context on how I felt during the weeks leading up to this trip. If I could describe my attitude in one word, it would be uncertain. I felt uncertain because this trip didn't feel like the previous mission trips that I've been to. My first time when going on missions was in my freshman year of high school, and since then, I've been blessed to go to Mexico, Haiti, Dominican Republic, and also right here in Houston. For each of these trips, I went into them with months of preparation, planning, and a clear understanding of what I would be doing there. I would also do devotions specifically tailored for that coming trip, and I would be held accountable by a large team consisting of at least 15 people. But for Thailand this year, it felt so different. I wasn't going as a student, but rather as a working young adult. So my mind was preoccupied with work, which unfortunately prevented me from doing a mission-specific devotional. Our Thailand team was also the smallest team that I've been a part of, with just 5 people. And though our team did meet up to discuss, pray, and plan for the trip, it was still a lot less frequent than my previous trips. Our team also went into this without a clear layout of what it is we would be doing. We had a vague understanding that we would be taking care of children and visiting the hill tribes, but the constant reminder that Pete told us was to just be ready for whatever Chuchan's parents asked for us to do. So as the day to leave drew nearer, I felt more and more overwhelmed as I was uncertain of what to expect and I was fearful of the unknown. But despite all of this worry and anxiety, I believe God still managed to open my eyes to see His grace in new ways. God has shown me that He can do amazing things even in the uncertainty and the unexpected. The first Saturday we arrived in Chiang Mai, we spent the entire morning hosting a field day for the children. After spending an exhausting 3 hours outside in the heat, we came back to the mission site, and Chuchan's mom asked me and Jenny if we would like to lead praise on that Sunday with the Thai missionaries. She also asked if we would like to practice with them right at that moment. So despite my tired body, I agreed because being on missions meant being adaptive. Now, the expectation I have for what praise should sound like has been largely influenced by my time serving at the ARCHE praise team. Our praise team holds a specific standard to make sure we are technically sound, that we're in key, on beat, and overall the best sounding praise team that we can be. But the praise practice that was held on that Saturday felt so far off from this. Just to list a few things, the sheet music was in Thai, so I didn't know when to play nor how the rhythm went. The guitar's strings were so old that it gave my fingers blisters, and the one song I didn't know how to play, Living Hope, was printed out in a key that was too low for me to sing. And on top of all this, I was still feeling gassed from the field day, so yes, it was a very stressful and tiring practice for me. And unfortunately, this caused me to not look forward to doing praise that Sunday because I didn't feel ready nor confident that it would sound any good. So I woke up that Sunday morning with a lot of uncertainty, but as we began to worship, all of these worries began to fade away. And that time became such a wonderful time of worship and praise. I still didn't play as well as I would have liked to, but it didn't matter to me anymore. The Thai children filled the sanctuary with their joyful shouts of praise, and I could feel the Holy Spirit moving in that room. The next day, Chuchan's dad took us to visit the Karen Hill tribe. The only information we were given about them was that they were a very poor and isolated group of people, and that there was also a man from this tribe who once threatened to kill Chuchan's dad if he were to come visit them again. However, Chuchan's dad still went to visit them, and because of his courage, the people were so shocked that they listened to his preaching, and they soon came to know Christ. So with this little information, I didn't know what to expect or what we would be doing. But once we arrived at the hill tribes, we settled in, and later that night, we gathered into a small, dimly lit sanctuary where the people gathered weekly to worship. We all came in and sat along the walls, and soon after, a hill tribe woman stood up and began to strum her guitar. However, the guitar was severely out of tune. She then began to sing in Thai, and the rest of the hill tribe people clapped along, but also the clapping was really offbeat from the singing. So with this out-of-tune guitar, the offbeat clapping, and the language I didn't understand, it was hard to feel like I was truly worshiping in that space. So I simply just clapped along and observed the hill tribe praising, and it was beautiful to see. However, it wasn't until the last song the hill tribe woman played that I believe God truly broke my heart and opened my eyes to see what it was that I was witnessing. She began to sing the melody to How Great Thou Art. And as I became aware of this very familiar hymn, I joined in with them in English. And at that moment, I felt completely overwhelmed as to what was happening. For the first time in my life, I felt like I finally witnessed with my own eyes what it meant when we say that our God is a God of all people. Here we were, a group of Korean Americans from Texas, singing with a hill tribe tucked away in this little corner of Thailand where they are essentially isolated from the rest of the world. These people would have never heard of the gospel if it weren't for God moving in Chuchan's dad to consistently reach out to them, even when faced with a death threat. God was bringing together two completely different and opposite groups to worship and glorify his name, because he is the one who deserves all of our praise, no matter where we come from, how we look like, what language we speak, or what we have done in our lives. And at that moment, we were one family as children of God. We were brothers and sisters, and we were sharing our praise together because we have found our salvation in the one true God, the one who sends his one and only Son, Jesus Christ, to die not just for one group of people, but for everyone in the world who confesses him as their Lord and Savior. Now, I share all of this to highlight the theme I mentioned at the beginning, that God works in the uncertainty and the unexpected. I came into the trip feeling heavily unprepared. I felt uncertain about leading Sunday praise due to how I felt it should have sounded like, and I went into the hill tribes not knowing at all what to expect. Yet, God still managed to show his glory and his goodness in each of these circumstances. God broke down my expectations of what a typical worship should sound like, and he showed me that all that matters is one's heart and intention behind the song. God used the worship sessions both in the church and the hill tribes to unite complete strangers and to give thanks to him who has saved us. How can a group of Thai children sing praises on a Sunday morning in a nation that is dominated by Buddhism? How can an isolated group in the hills of Thailand shout of how great and good our God is? These things may be impossible to believe at first sight, but praise be to God because he is more than able to do these beautiful acts. I'd like to just end by thanking you guys. Thank you for being an integral part of this ARCHE family. Because of your prayers and support, our team was able to go on this mission trip and witness all of the amazing things that God is doing in Thailand. I hope we can continue to be a church that sends our members on missions and go ourselves. Thank you.
Thanks, Joseph. Thanks, Joseph. Hello? Am I on? Oh, yeah, I'm on. Oh, you guys are clapping so loud. All right, let's get into it. As Joseph described, the most memorable moment by far of the entire mission trip for me was when we visited the Karen Hill tribe, worshiping with them and spending a night in their village. And here's why. It's because throughout the entire time, up on the journey up there, throughout the night, and the whole bit, Jesus' words reverberating in my mind, and it were these words, ones you are probably familiar with, from Matthew 28, the Great Commission. All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Go, therefore, and make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to follow all that I've commanded you, and behold, I am with you always to the end of the age. And also Acts 1:8, what Jesus tells his disciples before he ascends, right? But you will receive power from the Holy Spirit. Receive power when the Holy Spirit has come upon you, and you shall be my witnesses, both in Jerusalem and in all Judea and Samaria, and as far as the remotest parts of the earth. These words were echoing in my mind and in my soul because I felt that we were doing exactly as Jesus commanded us to do. We were literally going to all of the nations. A 2-hour drive from Chiang Mai and then a 1.5 to 2 hour walk just to get there. This is a remote and basically unknown people to the literal majority of the world. Quite literally the definition of the remotest parts of the world. Did you know this Karen Hill tribe is so primitive and so remote that they only got electricity a year ago? Just let that sink in a little bit. They collect water in these big rain tubs, and they just started 2 years ago. And so throughout these 2 days, there was this deep connection to that which is my calling as a Christian, not as a pastor, as a Christian, that a saved person is a sent person to the lost. Scripture makes it abundantly clear, church family, that if you are a Christian, someone saved by grace through faith, then you are a Christian, someone sent by that same grace through the same faith. Let me make it clear. The saved people of God are a sent people of God. But in the text that Son just read for us moments ago, Jesus then identifies a major problem, one that has plagued God's people seemingly from the very beginning, that while the harvest is plentiful, the workers are few. There are a lot of sheep without a shepherd. There are a lot of people who need to be saved, but there has been and still is or are a lack of people willing to be sent to help them. In the Old Testament, God calls Israel a sheep without a shepherd multiple times in books like Numbers, Ezekiel, and Zechariah. And clearly in Jesus' time, not much had changed, and still today. And the critical question that we have to ask for me is simply, why? If being sent is a fundamental thing to being saved, then why is it that there are many who are saved, many in this room, but not many who are sent? This might sting a little bit, but imagine that there is a mirror in front of you that you look at, like the one in your bathroom that you see every single morning. As you look into this mirror, ask yourself this question: how long have I been saved? I was saved when I was 20 years old, so that's 20 years. I'm 40. With that number in mind, then, ask then next, how often have I been sent? When's the last time I went? And then I think there's another question, just as critical as this one, and that's, how do we rectify this, right? How will things be changed here with us and, of course, capital C Church as a whole? Now, thankfully, Jesus answers both of these questions powerfully in our text today, and spoiler alert, the answer is the same to both. And so the prayer as we dig into the word today is this: not that you would feel guilt or burden or shame, but rather this, that you would see what Jesus sees, feel what Jesus feels, and therefore beseech the Lord of the harvest to be sent by him. Okay? So let's look at the passage then, shall we? Verse 35. It says, Jesus is going through all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues, proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom, and healing every disease and every sickness. This is essentially a summary of all that Jesus had been up to in the previous chapters: going, teaching, proclaiming, and healing. We know this is a summary because in chapter 4 of 23 of Matthew, there's almost an identical verse. Jesus is going about in all of Galilee, teaching in their synagogues, proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom, healing every disease and every sickness among the people. So everything in between 4:23 and 9:35 is an explanation, a detailed look at everything he's been up to. Examples of him going, teaching, proclaiming, and healing. Now, this is important to note because right before chapter 4, verse 23, we have the story where Jesus is baptized by John the Baptist, right? And then he's led into the wilderness for 40 days. He's tempted by Satan 3 times. He overcomes them, of course. And then Jesus announces that his ministry is going to start. He says, repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. And right after these words, he gets a couple of disciples to join him, and then he gets right to work. And the way Matthew writes it, Jesus says, go, 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 go the entire time. Right away, he gets on top of a mountain. From chapters 5 through 7, he preaches the Sermon on the Mount, his longest and perhaps greatest and most well-known sermon that we have. Then in chapters 8 and 9, it's literally one thing after another, a frenzy of activity. Here it is, listed out. Go ahead. Take maybe 45 seconds and just try to read that really quickly. That's everything he does in chapter 8 and 9. I'll give you a second. You may not have finished, but let's move on. If you read all of that and imagine yourself doing that, for me, I get tired just reading it. Like imagine everything that he's doing. It's one teaching after healing, after healing, after teaching, after proclaiming, after healing, after teaching. That's all that he's doing. So after all of that continuous activity, Matthew then summarizes everything in verse 35 to make sure that we are all on the same page. And then on verse 36, he tells us why Jesus did all that he had done. And simply, he saw, he felt, and therefore he did. In his going, Jesus saw a distressed and dispirited people, a sheep without a shepherd. And when he saw that which he saw, he felt a compassion. And because of this compassion that he felt, then he kept going, he kept teaching, he kept proclaiming, and then he kept healing. But then maybe in a bit of an unexpected twist, then Jesus turns his attention to the disciples, and then he says the words that you already know. The harvest is plentiful, but the workers, aka y'all, are few. Therefore, beseech the Lord of the harvest to send out workers into his harvest. You see, Jesus could have said simply, hey, now that you've seen me go and teach and proclaim and heal and doing all these things, go and do likewise. He does that in other parts of the gospel, doesn't he? But he doesn't do that here. And he doesn't even tell them to go. No, he rather tells them that though there are many sheep without a shepherd, there just simply aren't enough people who are willing to shepherd them. Now here's what I think Jesus is teaching them and us, and that's this. One, not only are the people of God not going, but I think more importantly, what he's teaching us is simply that we, the people of God, aren't seeing what he sees, and therefore aren't feeling what he feels, and therefore we are not, most importantly, beseeching God to be sent. Now the word beseech in the Greek literally means to beg and to plead. Jesus is saying the people of God are not crying out to him, begging and pleading, praying that he would send people to save those who are lost. Now here's the striking implication, okay? Jesus is saying, if we saw what he saw, we would then feel what he felt, and then we would beg and plead to be sent, which then means we would be led to go. Why are we not going? Because we're not seeing and feeling as Jesus does. And therefore we're not begging and pleading to be sent. And how will things change? When we see as Jesus sees, feel as therefore he feels, and then we will beg and plead for God to send us. So how are we going to do that? Well, here's how. There's a very funny relationship between seeing and feeling that I've always known, but I learned very powerfully on our mission trip that I wasn't anticipating. Okay? Here's the thing about seeing and feeling. Everyone with two good eyes who has vision, who isn't blind, will literally see the exact same thing when you're looking at one object, right? We see the same thing physically. But how we see, and therefore what we feel about what we see, well, that can change from literal person to person. Let me give you a really powerful example. It's the water buffalo and the chicken. Those are actually pictures that I took while we were there. I give you this example because one of our beloved team members, there's only 4 of us, I'll just tell you who it is. It's Jenny. I love her. But when Jenny was little, I found out that there was a bird that was flying over her head one day, and then the bird unfortunately pooped all over her, on her face, and apparently like it went in her eyes, and it was traumatizing. And so therefore, from that moment, she has been very, very much afraid of birds. Understandable. And apparently, it includes birds that don't fly, which is generally a chicken. Now, when you go into these villages, even in the regular parts of Thailand, in Mae Wang where we were, right, there's chickens everywhere. But when you go into these hill tribes, there are literally chickens all over the place. So as soon as she went, she's like, oh, no. Now, the problem with the chickens is that you can generally avoid them, but they pose a problem when she had to go use the restroom. Now, in the hill tribes, they don't have bathrooms in these houses. All the bathrooms are outdoors in a communal area. So to get there, she would have to climb down these steps. You'll see it on the video later. And then she would have to go and navigate towards the bathroom, which is about 150 yards away. The problem is, at the house we were staying was literally 25 black chickens that literally, that's where they lived, and they would just follow all of us around wherever we went. So Jenny's like, oh, no. But she's got to go use the restroom. So you know what she did? Well, we as a team said, Joseph, you got to go escort her to the bathroom. So Joseph would escort her and then do these things. And that's how she went to use the restroom. By God's grace, she overcame that fear, and the next day she went to the restroom all by herself with the chickens and everything. Praise be to God. Now here's what's interesting. You see the water buffalo. You'll see it again on the video. In the video, you'll see Jenny's closest to the water buffalo. Joseph and I are not that close. It's because these water buffalo are huge. And so we were down at the bottom of the village, exploring the village, and all of a sudden there is a group, a row of water buffalo, about 5 or 6 of them deep, being led by this man. And they're going down, and we're like, oh my goodness, look at the water buffalo. And Chuchan's filming and doing these things. And then all of a sudden, one of the water buffalo took a left towards us, and we were like, oh shoot, no way. Jenny took steps forward. And we're like, Jenny, it's water buffalo. They could crush you. She's like, they're my friends. And we're like, chickens can't harm you. She's like, no, I don't mess with them. The point is, we all see the same thing, but we felt a very different thing about these wonderful and majestic animals. And that's the thing. And so when you put this into context, what this means is simply this. Although Jesus and the disciples and the Jews of their time all saw the same thing physically, the same people in the same situations, they did not actually see the same thing nor feel the same thing. You see? What did Jesus see and feel? Matthew tells us a distressed and dispirited people, a people who were like a sheep without a shepherd. What did the disciples and others see? We're not sure because the Bible doesn't tell us, but I am certain they didn't see what Jesus saw. How do I know that? Because they didn't do what Jesus did. And if you look closer at the text, you can see why. Distressed and dispirited, in other translations of the English Bible, is translated harassed and helpless. That emotes more feelings, right? Because those words are a little stronger than dispirited and distressed. But if you look deeper at the Greek, here's what the literal Greek means. It means torn up and thrown down. Now, this definition is quite fitting because this is exactly what would happen to sheep without a shepherd. Sheep without a shepherd, without the guidance and the protection of a shepherd from their predators, would then be sheep who would be torn up and thrown down at the complete mercy of all their predators. And again, as if God needed to show me, I saw this firsthand of how dumb and stupid sheep are. In the ARCHE village tribe nearby, we got to visit a sheep farm. I took that picture. Wonderful, isn't it? Now, as we were watching these sheep, they're literally like so fluffy, they're like bouncy, it's amazing. Like you're like, oh my goodness, no wonder like wool is like. Anyways, we were there and then they kind of sit next to you when you go eat and then they're stupid. Like they don't get clues or hints and then the dogs have to come, the shepherding dogs, and then they all go back and they come back and they do this back and forth and you're like, oh cool, dumb sheep. Now, the dumb sheep thing took a whole nother level. Like I've heard stories, but it's another thing to see it with your eyes. I was in the field and I was like, oh, this is majestic. Look at the mountains and the hills. Look at these wonderful sheep. And I was looking at them and kind of like right after I took this picture, that sheep in the front began to pee. You can see there's another sheep right behind it, right? That sheep then went right behind, tucked his head and was drinking the pee as the other sheep was peeing. And I said, oh, heck no. Then when they got near me, when we were eating, I said, no, you got to go away because I have no idea where that no. Sheep without a shepherd, literally at the mercy of all their predators, torn up and thrown down. So then the question we must ask is this. If that is what Jesus sees, a sheep without a shepherd, when he sees the sinners in need of his love, what is it that we see when we see the people of the world? What do you see when you see the people that are hurting around us? People going through difficult times. People who are going through relational difficulties. Maybe people going through a divorce. Parents who are having difficulty with their children, going through financial strife. Health problems. People having to take care of their aging older parents. Whatever it may be. What do we see? What you're going to see is people who are acting as if they're harassed and helpless because that's literally their situation. But what do you see and what do you feel? Do you see sheep without a shepherd? Or do you see some people who can't get their act together and can't live their life right, so they're inconveniencing you and just annoying the crap out of you? What do you see when you walk around our city? People who clearly live difficult lives, way more difficult than ourselves. Do you see the harassed and helpless? Or do you see something altogether different? When you see the people around the world clearly distressed and dispirited, torn up and thrown down, what is it that we see? One of the boys in the dormitory, we called him the troublemaker. From day one, I could tell he was a troublemaker. don't listen right. He's always doing his different thing. Everyone's walking in a line. He's got his sandals on his hands, like just all sorts of different things. You're like, that kid, he ain't, some ain't right. He's in that picture. Here he is. Bing! You can just kind of tell from his face, that's who he is. In Korean, we call that 장난꾸러기. Whatever you want to call it, that's who he is. But the moment I saw him, I felt differently. And every single day I would see him, my heart would break. Yeah, he is a troublemaker, don't know how to listen. Yeah, he don't follow the rules, literally incapable, it feels like. But as I saw him, I felt something, and then I started to ask a different question, and I started to ask, why is he like this? Is it possible that he's like this because he's harassed and he's helpless, a sheep without a shepherd? You see all of these kids in the picture that you see, the reason why they live with Chuchan's parents in the dormitory is because all their parents are one of three. They're one, people who live in the hill tribes, aka they live literally hours away, and they don't have access to an education, so they send them down here to go get a public school education. Or their parents are either in jail for a crime, or they're druggies, and therefore can't take care of them. You realize it's a miracle in many ways that these students, these kids, act even appropriately most of the time. And this one little child, you're going, why is he this way? Why? Because he's sheep without a shepherd. And if you're wondering why my heart felt the way that it did, it's not because of anything other than this, because I saw that which I saw. Because Jesus gave me his eyes to see that which he sees. And so what I'm saying is this: if we see then what Jesus sees, or if we see as he sees, we will definitively, without a shadow of doubt in my mind, feel as he feels. And what is it that Jesus felt? Compassion. But not your average compassion. No. If you've been here with us a little while, if you've known me for a little while, you know this is one of my favorite words in Greek. It's splankna. Literally means gut reaction, which is to say a gut-wrenching pain. It is a pain and a hurt literally in your gut because you've either seen something or experienced something and it's just ripping you apart. Interestingly, Jesus is the only person in the entire New Testament who feels a splankna. The only other times it's used in the entire New Testament is in parables referencing God. And why is it that Jesus is the only one that feels this type of compassion? Simply because he's the only person that sees the world the way that he sees the world. On the final night of our trip, we had a chance to take all the kiddos to what's called a Chiang Mai night safari. Chiang Mai night safari, that song rings in my head even till this day. And it was such a treat. But to get there, half an hour car ride, you got to ride like this. Ooh. Boop. There we go. I took that picture too. I'm proud of myself. In the back of these pickup trucks, this is how you ride in Thailand. If you think that's cool, then go to Thailand. In the back of these pickup trucks, there was 27 of these boys, Joseph and I, to make sure they don't die. Now, as we're riding, all the boys that you can see in front of Joseph took the middle, I took the back. They all want to get as close to the front of the truck bed so they can do the wind in the hair kind of thing. They love it. It makes your face numb. I tried it. But this little boy, our troublemaker, couldn't get to the front no matter how hard he tried. He would try to sneak in there or he would be too late. And then he would try to squeeze his way in and the other boys would push him off because he's small. Then he would try again. They'd be like, get away. And he'd be like, and then he would come to the back and he'd go to the side and he'd climb up the rail. I'd be like, oh, no, get down. Then he would go over here and try to do that. I'd be like, oh, no, get down. My arms are long. And then you go over here 3 or 4 times. And finally, after the 4th time of, oh, no, get down, I decided to then take my hand and I reached around his chest and it's kind of held him to be like, yo, just chill. And then he squeezed real tight for 15 minutes. And in that moment, I did the only thing that I knew to do. I prayed. I have no idea what's wrong with this boy, Lord. But you heal him because I can't. You heal him because you care. Do something for this boy that I cannot do. Why? Because I saw what I saw and I felt what I felt. In a few minutes when we finish the sermon, you're going to see a recap video that Pastor Chuchan made. It's really good. But I wonder, what will you feel when you see it? What will you see? Now, because I know some of you, or all of you, or to a certain degree, and I trust that all of you are pretty good people, you will see and feel something. I guarantee it. But then again, I wonder, Will that which you see and feel, will it move you to cry out, to be the sent people? Because the unfortunate truth of the matter is, and again, this may hurt, is we as Christians have seen and heard a lot of missions testimonies like Joseph gave. We've seen a lot of recap videos like we will see in a little bit. But in truth, it's really not impacting our identity as a sent people. Facts. I've been on many mission trips because I'm a pastor and our church is wonderful and they send me on these mission trips for free. It's a part of my job. I love it. I've been with many of these students in the room who are no longer students. Joseph was one of the students that I went with. Every single time we go at the end, the missionary or the organization will ask every single person that goes, because they all want him to come back. Are you going to come back? When are you going to come back? And they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to be back. They say with all the confidence in the world. And I believe in that moment they mean every word, because when you're there, you want to be back. Sometimes you don't even want to go home. But then when you come home, the story changes, doesn't it? Because how many of those students kept going back? Very few. Joseph and Jenny has made a promise to go back. We're going back in February. I'll tell you the dates later. It's going to be in the newsletter this week. Sign-ups are happening now. They're going to end, and we're going to book our flights in September. We're going to go. We're hoping to get 8 people to go. They made a promise. Just got a lot of work to do with those students over there, and then Jenny apparently has to build a bathroom. More bathroom stories. If you want to ask, you can ask her later. They're also hilariously fun and cool kind. Anyways. Also, she got over her fear of squatty potty, so that's another cool thing. Anyways, long story short. But I'm not saying anything to disparage them, but they may not go back in February. That's how life works sometimes. I hope they do. So what will you see? I don't know. But I don't want to take the chance. So rather than just watching the video in a little bit and then having you feel whatever you feel, I'm going to give you the opportunity to do that which I think is most lacking, the thing that will make a difference, the answer to the why and the how, most important, and that is simply to beseech the Lord of the harvest. We're going to give you a chance to pray and ask God, Lord, help me to see what I need to see and feel what I need to feel so that I can then go send people. You see, when Jesus says the harvest is plentiful, the workers are few, and I am the Lord of the harvest, he's making a huge statement. Here's why. The word that's used in the New Testament for harvest, that's translated in the same way in the Old Testament, in the Hebrew, literally means not harvest, it means judgment. As in the coming judgment. When the sheep and the goats will be separated, the ins and the outs, the have and the have-nots, the saved and the saved-nots. Which means then the workers are the people who will be sent to help rescue the sheep, shepherding them to God so they might no longer be sheep without a shepherd, torn up and thrown down, but rather a saved people having been rescued by their God. This is why I'm saying if we saw the people of the world the way that Jesus does, as people who do not have a shepherd, as people who are torn up and thrown down, as people who will not survive the pending harvest, then we would feel a compassion for them that will move us to do everything that we can to save them. So why is it not happening? Well, let me tell you the truth. It's not what we maybe believed. It's not because you're too selfish or because you don't care enough. It's true, we don't generally care enough and we are too selfish, but that's not the problem. You know why? Because on our own, as sinners, we will never be caring enough nor selfless enough. But here's the real reason. Simply, it is because we are not beseeching the Lord of the harvest. Put the mirror up again and ask yourself this question. When was the last time as a Christian that you and I, that we asked and beseeched the Lord, begged and pleaded with him that he would send out the workers into the harvest? When's the last time we said, God, send someone, even if that includes me, just send someone, anyone? You see, this is critical because there's two truths that Jesus is telling us here in this passage. First, without God's people beseeching him, there will always be a certain lack of people to go. Take that to the bank. It's why Jesus doesn't command us to go. He commands us to pray so we may be sent. But the second and most important truth is this. If we beseech the Lord to be sent, beg and plead for to be sent, then God will send. Take that to the bank. Because why would he not? Why won't the God who spent all his days going and teaching and preaching and healing not send the people who are begging to be sent? That's like taking all of our wonderful physicians in here, putting literal people who are dying and they can do something to fix it and they'd be like, nah, I'm good. It'd be like taking parents who care for their kids and their kids are in agony and they have the thing to try to do something about it and they'll be like, nah, I'm good. Of course, God would send if we ask him to send. The one who sends his only son to save the lost sheep, the only one who would send his son, the lamb, to give his own life, to be torn up and thrown down himself so that we would not have to be, the only one who for the joy set before him endures the cross. Why would he not send if his people asked to be sent? Which means that the critical question for us is what might happen if we actually pleaded and begged and beseeched him to send us. What might happen? What happens if we go, Lord, send someone, anyone, me if it has to, just send someone, please. People need your love and your help. Send out your workers. You know what would happen? You'll begin to see as he sees, guaranteed. You'll feel as he feels, guaranteed. And then evermore you'll plead and beg with him. And then when he calls you to go, he, you, everyone will go. You see, we had it all wrong. Us going on missions is never an issue of readiness. That's what we think, right? Oh, I can't go on missions. I don't know the Bible enough. I don't know how to evangelize. I don't know this. I don't know that. I can't answer the questions. I'm not ready, Pastor Pete. No one cares. You know why? Because it's not your readiness that's the problem. It's your calling that's the problem. Right after, in chapter 10, verse 1, what does Jesus do? After he tells them there are not enough workers, aka you're not doing what I need you to do, he summons them and he gives them all authority to do everything. Matthew 28, before he sends them, he goes, all authority is with me. That word authority in Greek is egousia, out of being, out of my own being, I give you everything that I have and therefore I'm with you all the way till the age. You don't need to be ready. You just need to be called. Joseph talked about it. I didn't even coordinate this with him. He was not ready. But when he was called, God gave him everything he needed. It's not about readiness. It's about how much we pray. If we beseech the Lord, he will send us. Here's how I know. I'll finish with a story from the missionary. I heard lots of stories from Juchan's. He's an amazing man, I'm telling you. Joseph hinted at it a little while ago. But that Karen Hill tribe, as I said, back in the day, 20 years ago, there was no option to drive up there. Now you can with 4x4s. But back in those days, he would have to drive up to Pamesap, and then he would have to take a 3-hour walk. Apparently, in the last couple of years, they paved a new road that cut down that travel time by 1.5 hours. Thanks be to God. It was only 1.5 hours one way. But he told me every single time he would make that walk. He first went there. I was like, why did you go? And he's like, a missionary that was already there told me that there are these people out there, and then I went. And so when he went, it was rough. One time, apparently, he was offered water, and they thought they were doing him a favor. Here's the best water we have, Pastor. And they brought it out in one of those jugs that you collect gas in to fill up your lawnmower. And there was literal chunks of oil flowing in it, because that's all they did, just collect the rain, and they gave it to him. Do I drink this? He asked us. I was like, Joseph went, no. Did you? Or Jenny? Someone said no. I didn't have the guts to answer. But he drank it. But then he went, and he kept going. But after a little while, they started hating him. You see, in Thailand, just one little thing, the way of life in Thailand versus the way of life of a Christian, completely different. In Thailand, it is still a value, if you're a man, to have multiple wives. It's a thing of blessing. Apparently, it's a good thing to have more wives. Well, God tells us in the gospel, one man, one wife, that's it. So he comes in being like, no, all these wives? No. And so they didn't like him. And so when Joseph says that he was threatened to be killed, I don't know how you receive that. In the West, we're probably like, whatever. No, it's not whatever. Again, the reason why I show you the map is if he went back, by the way, he goes back, right? When he goes back, if they kill him, do you know what happens? Nothing, because nobody knows people live there. They would not find his body. His wife, Chushan's mom, would never have been able to find that place. It's so remote. They're so primitive. I told you, they got electricity 1 year ago. There's no cell phone reception up there. They don't even have phones. It's wild. So do you think those types of people, if they're threatening because you're coming in to ruin my kind of life, and a man goes, I'm going to kill you the next time you come, you think he won't do it? Come on. If you thought that the police were going to come help, no, this is a different world. But he goes. But you know why he went? Not because he's brave. Not because he's a missionary. He went because he was called. And you know how he went? Trembling in fear, praying every step of the way for 3 hours as he walking that trail up. I don't know if I'm going to make it back. He beseeched the Lord. Then he had everything he needed. That hill country is so remote. It's 20 families, literally in the middle of nowhere, that when he first got there, they didn't even speak Thai. They spoke their own hill tribe dialect. They're literally from the ancient age. So in the beginning, he had to speak Thai, find someone who spoke Thai, and then they had to translate his Thai to their native dialect. But because he went, the people of the hill tribe were astonished. You know what they said? Clearly, this God must mean something to you. He must be worth at least checking out. That they did in the entire hill tribe, 20 families, all now saved. So when we got there, they rolled out the red carpet, their version, cooked food, all that stuff for us. And then we gathered in this church. You'll see it in the video, this little tiny room with these dim little lights. And we worshiped. And in that moment, I was just thinking, God, literally in the middle of nowhere, going, God, what in the world? This is, no words. And then they started singing. And again, the guitar terribly out of tune. Clapping off beat. Joseph missed one thing. There are a whole bunch of old people there. All out of tune, tone deaf. It's literally like, what is this? It just sounds like noise, but it was beautiful noise. Make a joyful noise to the Lord, he said. And then all of a sudden we were singing, and then I don't understand anything. And again, think about how they know the songs. You know how they know the songs and how they know the chords? There's no sheet music, there's no projector, none of that. They know the songs because they were taught it and they memorized it. Then we're singing, and then all of a sudden, a melody I recognize. Immediately. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. And in that moment, I started singing as loud as I could. And I hear Joseph next to me. He told you, he starts singing. Jenny starts singing. Chuchan was filming, so I couldn't hear what he was doing. 3 of us singing in English. Chuchan's dad singing it in Korean. And then people in the sanctuary singing in Thai in their native dialect. Count the languages. That's 4 languages singing How Great Thou Art in the middle of nowhere. If we died there, you wouldn't know. We would never make it back. And you wouldn't know where to find us. And then afterwards, he then began to preach in Thai. Most of the people now speak Thai because of him. I looked over at Chuchan, who understands Thai. He grew up there. And he kind of gives you this look, and I think he figured out, I'm trying to figure out what in the world Muksanim's preaching about, pastor's preaching about. So he goes, oh, you know what he's preaching about? And I was like, what? You want to know what he's preaching about? To these people? He said, now that you are saved, go to the rest of the hill tribes and go save them. The saved people are sent people. Pray that you would be sent. He said, go, the harvest is plentiful, even here in the hill country. But the workers are few, but not with you. Go. We're going to see the video in here in a second. But before we do, I'm going to give you an opportunity to do exactly what you see on the screen. Beseech the Lord of the harvest. Beg and plead. There are people without a shepherd, and they need to be saved. I'm on record here in the West. If you're not going on missions at least once every 3 years, then I don't know what we are doing. I don't get it. Again, sorry if I offend you. But a lot of the reasons that I hear about people not going, we have a culture in the West at our church too. You stop going on missions once you get out of college because you don't get a convenient 2-month summer break. But if I see all the people making all their travel plans, flying all the way across the world to Korea with all their 1-year-old, 2-year-old, doing all that plan and sort of, I don't know why it is that we can't go. It doesn't make any sense to me. Y'all are too intelligent and too capable and too everything to not be able to do what that God was called you to do. But here's the thing. It's not because you don't care. It's not because you're not a good enough Christian. It's not any of those things. It's because you and we are not praying that he would send us. We're going to cue the video for about 2 minutes. I'm going to give you an opportunity to pray. And the thing that I want you to pray is simple. Pray that God would help you to see that what you need to see, therefore feel what you need to feel, so that you would ask him, send people, Lord. Make us a sending church. And then he'll do the rest, I promise. So prepare your hearts a little bit. Take rid of all the guilt. There's no guilt in this room. Again, there's no guilt. Why? Because you and I aren't good enough and holy enough to want to go anyway. That's why Jesus tells us to pray. So ask God that you would see what you see and feel what he feels, and then therefore we would pray, and then he'll send you, I promise. And then we're going to cue the video, watch the video, pay attention for when Jenny wants to go hug the water buffalo, and then we'll sing. Let's beseech the Lord of the harvest to be sent, shall we? See the video.